everybody, how's it doing? How's it going? Welcome to the first video of Tales from the Creeps and the last this year. Now I know I made a post on the Reddit saying that I would read everyone's stories, and I will, I promise. This will be the last video of the year, and I wanted to make it kind of special. This is my story. I wrote this story, and I'm kind of nervous because I wrote it so long ago. It's got, and I went through it and I reread it, and it's kind of embarrassing because you can kind of see, little bits and pieces of old me who was obsessed with anime and video games and it's, it's a whole whirlwind. And the thing is, I thought it would be a cool idea to switch perspectives without kind of giving a hint that I'm switching perspectives. So when that happens, I will tell you. So that way it doesn't become confusing and a whole mess like the story already is. Alright, this story is put together like mega. So I'm kind of nervous, but I cannot wait to read Obsession. Alright, so let's get into my very first story. Part 1, Chapter 1. My name is Alexandria Wright. Most people call me Alex. I'm 25 and I live in Oklahoma attending college. It was a windy, gloomy day. The dark, gray clouds hung over the sky like an umbrella blocking the warm rays of the sun. The echo of thunder rang out in the distance as soft, cool raindrops began to hit my body. I don't want to get wet, and I hated being cold, so I picked up the pace and ran into my college dorm. Thankfully, I hadn't gotten too soaked from the rain. I set my backpack down on the bed and headed into the restroom to freshen up. I gazed upon my reflection in the mirror, seeing my long red hair had gotten wetter than I thought. My tired green eyes had bags under them from the late night studying. Grabbing a towel hanging on the nearby rack, I dry my hair and head back to my bed, looking at the empty bed next to mine. Wonder where... Before I could finish my sentence, the door to my dorm room opened up. My roommate Kyla Reed had walked in. "Hey, Alex," she said in a friendly tone. She hadn't been so lucky like I to get out of the rain. "You're soaked. Here." I tossed her the towel, and I was used to drying my hair. "Thank you, Alex. Thankfully my books and papers hadn't gotten too wet," Kyla replied as she threw her backpack on her bed and began to dry her hair and clothes. Kyla was average height, 24 years old, big body. Her long, dark hair draped over her shoulders, and her blue eyes made her seem kind and loving with the way she looked at people. Unlike me, short, long, messy hair, I needed glasses to see, and my tired eyes made me look undesirable to any man that looked away. Sure, I had a lean body like Kyla, but I didn't have the proportions to compete with her, or any woman that was clearly more attractive than I. It intimidated me. "So, Alex, did you hear about the new transfer student?" Kyla asked as she raised the towel from her damp, black hair. I hadn't noticed she had asked me a question. I was so deep in my thought of my own insecurities. "Kyla to Alex." Kyla snapped her fingers close to my face, and I jumped back to reality. Oop, there goes gravity. Sorry, I was lost in thought. "What'd you say?" "I asked if you heard about the new transfer student. He's from Russia. Quite the looker, if I might add." Kyla looked at me, waiting for my response. "Yes, I met him the other day. His name was Ivan Reese," I replied, a blush lighting up my cheeks. I'd already fallen for him in the short time I met Ivan. Ivan was tall, 26 years old, a black hair tied into a small ponytail, and I wore red eye contacts. He told me that he hated the color of his real eyes. Oh, it's so edgy. It's so edgy and, just lame. Kyla immediately caught on and gave me a sly look, a teasing smile stretching across her face. "You gonna make a move on him?" She poked at my cheeks. "If you don't, I will," she added. I swatted her hand away, being annoyed at her prodding. "Guess it wouldn't hurt to try. Not like you'd go for a girl like me." I mumbled under my breath as I hugged my legs, staring out the window, seeing the rain drench the college campus and the town that stretched beyond it. The next day, it was still raining, but not as hard as it was yesterday. I saw him in the hall, talking to a guy I haven't met yet. I didn't really care to notice any of his features, as my gaze was only focused on Ivan. I wanted to talk to him. I had to talk to him, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move, and I had a nervous feeling in the pit of my stomach. I just stood there, staring at him. No words, just soft breaths escaping my lips. "Hey man, I think that red-haired chick is checking you out," Sullivan pointed out to Ivan, a small smile coming across his face. What redhead? Ivan looked over, his gaze meeting Alexandria's. She seemed to tense up as they made eye contact. Oh, her. I met her a couple days ago. A bit on the nerdy side, but she's cute. Ivan didn't finish the sentence. A brief look of pain plagued his face before he shook his head, clearing a thought from his mind. Never mind. Sullivan gave him an odd look, cocking his eyebrow but shrugging. You gonna talk to her, or just stand there? Sullivan said, slapping Ivan's back. All right, if you stop slapping my back, Ivan replied as he walked over to Alexandria. Alexandria tensed up a bit more, gripping her books tightly out of nervousness. Seeing Ivan approach her, Hey, Alex, he said with a casual demeanor, but there was a hint of hesitation. Hey, I know this is out of nowhere and we just met, but I'd like to be your girlfriend. It's so cringy, like, typical romance anime garbage. It's so bad. Oh, gosh. I don't know what I was thinking writing this. Alexandria turned beet red and she looked at the ground expecting to be rejected. Ivan was caught off by this sudden proposal. Oh, well... Ivan rubbed the back of his neck, but once Alexandria looked back up, her green eyes sent a chill down his spine, bringing back bad memories of what had happened in his past. Alexandria stood there. A look of impatience was in her eyes. Her heart felt like it was about to burst or wither depending on his answer. Ivan opened his mouth. Nothing came out but a hesitant release of breath. It's so anime. Just, you know, gosh. But after a second, he finally gave his answer. Sure, I've been in a relationship in a long while. Before he could finish the sentence, Alexandria had hugged him and even nuzzled his chest. You made me so happy, she muttered under her breath. I was caught off by the sudden embrace and gently pushed her off. Sorry, not that I don't appreciate it. I just prefer to get to know somebody a bit more. Ivan told her. Alexandria just nodded in response to him and smiled. Finally, somebody accepted me. Somebody would truly love me for who I am. I won't let that be taken from me. That was chapter 1. It's so bad. I'm talking to the mic right now, obviously, but I'm like red from embarrassment and how just like it's too much anime. It's too much. Chapter 2. About 4 months passed since Ivan and I started dating. We've done the typical things like couples do, hold hands, hug, and kiss. Even made out a few times, but nothing further than that. Been having dreams, recurring dreams of Ivan leaving me, ditching me, cheating on me. I hated it. I loved Ivan more than he knew. I didn't want to lose him. I couldn't lose him. With each passing day, whenever he talked to someone other than me, I felt a pain in my chest. It reminded me of those dreams I had. My insecurities coming to light as I imagined the love of my life tossing me away like garbage. How could I stop these feelings? How could I keep Ivan all to myself? I didn't have time to answer the questions I brought up for myself as I needed to head back to class. I sat up in my bed, grabbed my things, and left my dorm room. As I walked down the hall, I noticed Ivan with Sullivan. He and Ivan had become good friends since his transfer from Russia and often sat around us when we had free time. Sully-the-Skeleton is of Hispanic descent, around 5'6", 27 years old, slick back brown hair that dangled just past his ears, and hazel eyes. He carried himself with confidence, as the definition of chivalry. Helped anyone who needed it. I admired that about him, but I couldn't help but get a jealous feeling whenever Ivan was around him instead of me. But I had never dated anyone until 4 months ago, and I figured it was just a normal feeling that would pass with time. I was wrong. I wanted nothing more than to pry Ivan away from him and keep him to myself. He was mine and mine alone. I couldn't let anyone take him from me. Surely he would understand. Surely he feels the same way about me. I haven't noticed how hard I was clutching my fist until I felt something wet trickle out of my palm. My nails dug into my own skin so much they cut past the skin, caused a small incision in my right palm. I panicked. I couldn't let my darling see me like this. He would think less of me. I know it. I headed to the nearest restroom and ran in, turning on the sink to wash my right hand from my own viscous fluid. Viscous. Is this normal? I mumbled to myself, wondering if my insecurities were getting the better of me. No, it couldn't be, I muttered, grabbing a paper towel from the dispenser. It's everyone around Ivan, all of them trying to take what's mine. I trailed off in thought. I knew how to keep Ivan away from them. Back in the hallway, Sullivan had slapped Ivan on his back and gave him the usual friendly smile. So, how are you in Alexandria? She treating you good? Sullivan asked as he nudged Ivan with his left elbow. Yeah, she's a bit clingy and doesn't know what a personal bubble is, but she's also sweet, passionate about her hobbies, Ivan explained to Sullivan. Well, I'm happy for you, buddy, but have you told her? Sullivan asked. About what? Ivan replied, wondering what Sullivan was talking about. Your past? Why you wear those red eye contacts? He pressed further. No, I haven't, Ivan stated, his eyes getting lost in the past. That was chapter 2. That is such an abrupt ending. It's like, alright, that's a good spot to start. It's got so many flaws, and the dialogue is kind of cringe. Chapter 3. I had just gotten back to my dorm, exhausted from my date with Ivan. Kyla was there, waiting on all the juicy details from my date. So, what'd you two do this time? Come on, tell me. She asked, poking at my cheek like always. I batted her hand away. All right. You're such a child sometimes, Kyla. I told her all she wanted to hear, how Ivan and I went out and ate, saw a movie, took a walk at the local park, and even sharing a romantic kiss. I could relive that moment in my head for eternity. He told me. Told you what? Kyla asked, curiosity in her eye. His past. Why he wears those contacts. Alexandria looked down at her hands, her fingers intertwining and fidgeting nervously, thinking back at what Ivan had told her. No, this is where I committed one of the great many sins of explaining and droning on about a past that did not need to be explained. It needed to be left a mystery, but here we go. The night sky was beautiful. This is back during the date. I thought it would be cool to be thinking of a flashback. So, okay, this is back during the date for Ivan and Alex. The night sky was beautiful, stars cascading across the vast, dark shades of blue and black. Alexandria sitting next to her beloved on a park bench, a slight breeze keeping the crisp, cool air in their lungs. I was young, lived alone with my father. He was loving and compassionate, always there to protect me, keep me safe, Ivan stated, looking at the ground. I didn't say anything. I kept quiet so I could hear his sweet voice echo through my ears. My mother was the complete opposite. She and my father always got into arguments. Every time they argued, my mother would run off and come back hours later, inebriated and bitter. I even paused, holding back tears, but he continued on. It's so anime. It's so cringe anime. She'd often beat me and throw things at my father. One night she came home late, heard her stammering around and prepared for another beating, but that didn't happen. I heard her enter my father's room, and moments later, I heard a gunshot. Ivan had tears rolling down his cheeks. He used my sleeve to wipe them off. I was scared when I saw her shadow under the door, so I did what any kid would do, and hid in my closet, covering myself in my own dirty laundry. Hearing that woman speak my name in such a soft manner terrified me. I knew she would kill me if I'd come out of my hiding spot. Thankfully, she never found me, and the officers came in arresting her. Ivan was holding my hand tightly. Who called the cops? Didn't she shoot your father? I asked. Yes, but my father stayed strong and used what little life he had left to call them. The officer said he never responded after giving them our address. Ivan began to sob as his mind replayed that night. I brought his forehead to mine, doing my best to comfort him. My love was fragile, and I couldn't allow anyone to hurt him anymore. Gosh. She's white knighting. Alex is white knighting. Oh gosh, I can't get over it. Does this have anything to do with wearing those contacts? I cupped his wet cheeks in my hands, looking him in the eyes. Yes, my mother had green eyes, and every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I just remembered the beating she gave me. It disgusted me. I don't want to have anything in common with that vile woman, Ivan explained. Pain and fear hid behind those red eye contacts. I, however, was worried. What does he think of my eyes? Is he scared of me? Think less of me for sharing the same eye color as his mother? I had to ask, and I did. Do my eyes remind you? Bring back those memories? I asked, my heart palpitating from suspense and anxiety as I continued to stare at him. Ivan made eye contact with her and nodded. Alex, I'm so sorry, but maybe it's best you and Ivan... Oh, okay, so even I got confused here. So, after that, it's back to Alex and Kyla. Alex, I'm so sorry, but maybe it's best you and Ivan separate, Kyla suggested. The thought of that appalled me. Kyla knew how much I loved Ivan. I wanted nothing more than to hurt her for saying such things, Excuse you? No, I'm not doing that. Ivan is mine and nobody will keep him from me. Not even you. I yelled, unaware of the distress I had caused Kyla. Unaware of the manic look I had in my eyes. Kyla stood up from her bed, clearly scared and concerned for me. Alex, you need to calm down. I'm just trying to help, Kyla said in a shaky tone. Well, you're not, I yelled once more, realizing that Kyla wanted Ivan. She wanted us to separate so she could have him for himself. Ivan is mine. I walked out of the room, other students staring at me with their prying, nosy eyes. They all wanted Ivan. All of them. I left campus and waited in my car, clutching the wheel, my knuckles turning white. I sat in my car, all the hatred and rage festering inside my soul. I waited for hours in my car and looked at the digital clock. 2:17 a.m. I left my car and headed back to my college dorm. Quietly opened the door to see Kyla lying asleep in her bed. I sneak in and gently shut the door. A million thoughts are running through my mind and all are screaming at me to kill Kyla. I grab a pillow off my bed, clutching it with my hands as I loom over Kyla. Was this the right choice? Was I really going to kill my friend over what she said? I back up and sit on my bed. My breathing was starting to escalate. I felt sick to my stomach. But what she said in those dreams kept repeating over and over again in my head, like a record player picking up the curves in my brain. I tightened my grip on my pillow and put it over Kyla's peaceful, resting face. After a couple seconds, she began to realize she couldn't breathe and started fighting back. Yeah, this is her first kill. She is smothering her with a pillow. And the adrenaline in my veins kept the pillow tight over her head. She started scratching fiercely at my arms, trying to get me to stop, blood trickling down the burning claw marks that now scarred my alabaster skin. Eventually, she stopped fighting back. Her muffled cries for help dwindled, and she laid still in her bed. I was breathing heavily and winced at the pain that plagued my bloody forearms. I killed my best friend, and I enjoyed it because it was all for my love, Ivan. I ran to the bathroom to try and mend my scratched-up arms. I washed the blood off as best as I can and used a towel to dry them off, hoping it would take away the burning sensation, but it never did. I ran out of my dorm, forgetting to shut the door and out to my car. I started up and speed off onto the pavement. As I drive through town, I grab my phone and call Ivan. Chapter 4. So yeah, no, she's... Oh gosh. I just don't have words. Alright, chapter 4. This is from Ivan's perspective. Ivan's phone began to ring. He did not hear it as he was a heavy sleeper. However, Sullivan did. He grumbled in annoyance and slowly sat up. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at the dresser between their beds. He saw that it was Alex calling and got up, shaking Ivan. Ivan, dude, wake up. Alex is calling you. He looked over to see the call ended. Only for her to call again. Ivan grumbled, protesting his friend's shaking. What? Ivan opened his sleepy eyes. Your girl is calling you, Sullivan replied. Ivan stretched his arms, sat up, and picked up the phone. Alex, what? Okay. Slow down. What's going on? Ivan asked. It's bad. I went on a night walk to clear my head, and now somebody is following me. Please, I need help. I ran into the old abandoned mental asylum to hide from him. Ivan's heart started racing. Of course, just stay hidden. We'll be right there. I'll call the cops. Ivan said. No need. I already did. Alexandria lied. Hang tight and stay hidden. Ivan hung up and told Sullivan what was going on. All right, let's go save your girl, he said, and gave me a comforting pat on my back. Leaving the dorms, we see police cars and ambulance pulling into the women's dorms. What the hell is going on? Sullivan asked. I shrugged. Probably another pervert got caught in the women's dorms. Let's go. Everyone replied as he got into Sullivan's vehicle and drove off. Ivan was quiet the whole ride towards the asylum. Sullivan did his best to comfort his best friend, offering words of affirmation and friendly smiles. There, Ivan pointed to the asylum. Sullivan nodded and pulled into the lot. Sullivan got out. He noticed Alexandria's car was in the lot. Wait, isn't that her car? What the hell is going on? He looked towards Ivan. Ivan was dumbfounded. What? That doesn't make any sense. Ivan paused for a moment. She said she was on a walk, right? So why is her car here? Ivan? Sullivan asked. I don't know. I'm worried and something is clearly wrong. We need to find Alex. Ivan glared at her car and then started walking toward the old metal doors of the asylum. St. Eleanor's Mental Hospital was printed on the building. The letters faded and worn out from weathering. The old doors were slightly ajar, showing signs of entry. Ivan and I pushed against the doors. They creaked and groaned as we forced them open. The old asylum smelled of mold and dust. Light fixtures hung from the ceiling. Dirt and old hospital equipment littered the untouched floors. Before either of us could call out for Alexandria, I heard a sickening crack, like metal had connected with flesh. Looking over at my right to see Ivan fall to the old floor, and Alexandria screamed. I forgot. It just switches to Sullivan mid-sentence. Okay, so the moment they walk through the doors, because it catches me off guard too, because it's just so poorly written. So once they walk through the doors, it goes to Sullivan's perspective. Before either of us could call out for Alexandria, I heard a sickening crack, like metal had connected with flesh. Looking over to my right to see Ivan fall to the old floor, and Alexandria screamed. A rusty pipe in her small arm, she dropped the pipe, then clambered against the old tiles. Alex, what the fuck? I yelled. She ignored me, shaking Ivan to wake up. Her green eyes were bloodshot and psychotic. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what had just occurred. That's the end of chapter 4. It just stops right there, like a bad anime episode. Alright, chapter 5. Ivan's body lay limp in her tiny arms. Ivan, sweet darling, wake up, I didn't mean to hurt you. She yelled, but Ivan never responded. I knelt down to check his pulse, but Alexandria clawed my face with her nails. Don't touch him! This is your fault! She spat in anger. I gasped in pain, the stinging sensation spreading across my face. Shit! What's wrong with you? Why is your car here? Where's the creep who's following you? I spat. I wanted to get Ivan away from her, but a crazed look plagued her eyes, and it scared me. Oh. His friend is damaged, has taken head damage, and he's worried about the fake creep and why her car is here. What was I thinking? It was all lies to lure my love out here. But over the phone, he mentioned a we. That's why. Alexandria laid Ivan's head gently to the dirty floor and picked up the rusty metal pipe. So then that was meant for you. You caused him to get hurt. It's your fault! Alexandria was breathing erratically. Her bloodshot eyes were staring daggers into my soul. I looked at Ivan, then back to Alex. I turned and ran down the left wing hallway to the asylum. I heard her footsteps charging after me. I was running in darkness, thinking about the streetlights from the parking lot illuminating from the dusty, broken windows. My right foot made contact with a rusty wheelchair. I tripped and fell, feeling something sharp under my stomach. It was hell not to scream in pain. I forced myself back to my feet and found an old room. I run in and placed my back against the wall. Try to steady my breathing and keep it quiet so she wouldn't hear me. I take out my phone and use the dim light to shine on my stomach. What seemed to be a shard of glass had impaled my stomach. This is a pain in the glass, I whispered to myself and let out a painful chuckle. Gosh. It's a pain in the... What was I thinking writing that? It's a pain in the glasp. In the glasp? Gosh, I'm so baffled by my own terrible writing, I can't even freaking talk right. Alright, I whispered to myself and let out a painful chuckle. Put my phone back in my pocket, hearing footsteps close by. Oh, Sully. Where'd you go, Sully? She cooed in the empty, dark hallway. I slowly peeked around the corner only to duck my head back in the room. She was using her phone light to find me. It was only a matter of time before she found me. I needed to defend myself with something, but what? Using the bleak light from my phone, I spot an old broom handle on the floor and gently pick it up, bracing myself for the worst. That's the end of chapter 5. On to chapter 6. And this is only part 1 of part 2. We still got a whole nother part to read. Oh gosh. My eyes opened up to see the dark ceiling of the asylum. My head felt heavy and was throbbing, and right, chapter 6 goes back to Ivan's perspective. My eyes opened up to see the dark ceiling of the asylum. My head felt heavy and was throbbing with pain. I touched where the pain was emanating from. Felt blood. Sully? Alex? I called with a weak voice as I slowly rise to my feet. I take out my phone and turn on the light. Sully! Alex! I called again, but the answer I got was not the one I desired. Alex, stop! I heard Sullivan cry as the bashing of metal against skin and muscle was heard. My eyes widened and I quickly dialed 911 to give the cops the address and hang up. The phone light guiding my way down the hall, I run into a sight I'd never wished on my worst enemy. Alexandria was standing over Sullivan. The rusty pipe was dripping with blood, creating a puddle at her feet while a puddle of crimson dripped from Sullivan's head. Alex? The sound of my voice caused her to drop the rusty pipe. She turned to me. Those terrifying eyes mirrored my mother's from all those years ago. Ivan, my dear, sweet, beloved Ivan. She ran over and hugged me tightly. I yelled and pushed her off me. What have you done? You killed Sullivan! I yelled, my breath shaky and wavering. He was getting in between us. Wanted you all to himself. You're my boyfriend, and only mine. She approached me. Get away from me! I yelled back, taking a step backward. The words cut deep in Alexandria's heart. What? But it's just me, my love. Please, take me into your arms. She begged, tears falling from her green, manic eyes. I stood in silence for a moment. The cops would be here soon. If I can stall her for just long enough, they could arrest her so she can get the help she so clearly needs. I'm sorry, Alexandria. Let's just sit down and snuggle, okay? I felt sick to my stomach. I felt like the little boy from so long ago as she clung to me like a magnet. We leaned against the old asylum wall and I whispered meaningless things to keep her calm and sedated. It felt like hours waiting for the cops, but I eventually saw the red and blue lights flashing through the old windows. Alexandria had fallen asleep, nuzzling me, but her peace wasn't to last. The cops busted through the old metal doors, causing Alexandria to wake up. What was that? She noticed the lights flashing, and a betrayed look cloaked her face. How could you? I loved you! I thought you felt the same! Freeze! The two officers heard the yelling and pointed their tasers at Alexandria. Alexandria was hyperventilating as her eyes went from the cops to Ivan, then back to the cops. You won't keep me from him. I'll never let that happen. She quickly grabbed the pipe and ran down the hall, throwing the pipe at a nearby window and jumped out, both officers missing their taser shots. I stood up to see Alexandria run into the nearby woods, then I rode over and kneeled next to Sullivan. I put my 2 fingers on his neck, closing my eyes and praying for even the faintest pulse, and my prayers were answered. It was faint, but there. Please, call an ambulance! My friend needs help! I cried to the 2 officers. One of the officers nodded and called an ambulance and a runaway suspect. The second officer knelt down next to me and put his hand on my back. He had blue eyes and short black hair. I'm Officer Stevens. That's Officer Blakely. He pointed to the other. I hadn't realized she was a woman until now. Brown hair and a ponytail and brown eyes. She was kind of cute, but I didn't have time to think about that. Why? That is such a useless sentence. Why did I put that? Now, son, we're going to need a statement from you on what happened, Officer Stevens asked me, and nodded, telling them everything. And I nodded, telling them everything. Officer Blakely told me Alexandria was now a wanted criminal, being the prime suspect for the murder of Kyla Reeds. I had no idea she murdered her until now. I looked so exhausted, and the pain in the back of my skull still remained. I blacked out in an empty void of sleep. That's the end of Chapter 6. On to Chapter 7, the final chapter of Part 1. I woke in the hospital. My head was bandaged and nobody was at my bedside waiting for me. I sat and stared up at the ceiling, wondering where Alex had gone and if my friend Sullivan would pull through. So much had happened in such little time. I began to cry and put my right arm over my eyes. The nurse came in with a doctor at her side. The nurse saw my dismay and she did what she could to comfort me and gave me some pain medication. Mr. Reese, I'm Dr. Connors. Oh, I forgot it's the doctor. Mr. Reese, I'm Dr. Connors. He smiled. He was bald, had hazel eyes, and looked to be 45. Please, just call me Ivan, I muttered weakly. In any case, your head injury wasn't severe. Just keep the wound dressed and clean, and we'll discharge you shortly. That is not how you treat a head wound patient. They need time, almost over a week, to cooperate and recuperate. Can you tell me about my friend? His name is Sully-the-Skeleton. I'm sorry, I'm not his doctor. I'll be happy to find his room after we discharge you. Dr. Connor smiled once more and left with the nurse. Once I was discharged, I was able to get Sullivan's room and walked in. I was happy to see his mother and father by his side. His head and body were bandaged, an IV bag connected to his arm, as well as a heart monitor and brainwave monitor. Parents hugged me and told me the one time he was awake he had lost his memory. It saddened me to see him in such a state, but that's okay. It just meant I could be friends with him all over again. After I spent some time with his parents, I headed back to my dorm room. Once I opened the door, I found a letter on my bed. It was from Alexandria. I took it and crumbled it, throwing it into the trash can. I had no idea that she would be so obsessed with me that I'd most likely see her again. What a garbage story. So embarrassed to read that. So many issues. It was never clear when I switched perspectives. Alex was just insane and didn't really have a good reason to be obsessed with Ivan. She was just like that because I wanted her to be like that. That does not make a good horror story. That makes a silly, goofy horror story. I had to pick up my microphone just so I can complain about my own stinking story. I'm sure y'all's are going to be so much better than this one. I guarantee it. Okay. Now that is out of the way, let's get part 2 going. Chapter 1 of part 2. Now I can say for certain that part 2 only takes perspective from Ivan. It had been 6 months since I've seen Alexandria. Nobody has seen her since she went mad. I had no idea if she died in those woods, if she was caught or still watching me without my knowing. It scared me to think about that. The only thing I had left for her is the note she left me. I couldn't tell you why I pulled it out of the trash can and kept it. Nobody knows I have it. Not even Sullivan, who has gotten out of the hospital. We're still good friends, and we even graduated college together. We both share an apartment and have decent jobs. Sullivan became a voice actor starring in video games and children's shows. He even has a girlfriend named Alice Trebek. She's pale, long black hair, but her blue eyes reflect the night sky and mirror her good nature. I'm happy Sullivan found someone. He often wakes up in a cold sweat or tosses in his sleep due to the trauma Alexandria inflicted on him. Alice often stays the night to keep him company and help him sleep a little easier. As for me, I became a psychiatrist. Having to deal with my own trauma as well as what Sullivan and I went through with Alex, it inspired me to help the mentally ill. If she's ever caught, I want to be her personal doctor. I want to help her get over this obsession with me and find out what triggered her mental collapse. Keep in mind, I do not have feelings for her, nor do I want to be in any relationship with her. I simply pity her and want to get her on the road to recovery. I've had a few patients similar to her, and I believe I'm close to a breakthrough. The collapse is usually caused by abuse, trauma, or the loss of a family member, but it's hard to say. The human mind is a scary place, and I'm itching to uncover its secrets. I'm home by myself tonight. Sullivan and Alice went out on a date, which gives me time to do some research on Alexandria. She's been nagging at the back of my mind. I don't know why I was so curious of her whereabouts. Sat down on my computer chair and typed in Alexandria Wright. A couple articles popped up, all repeating what happened that night. Some people are treating her like a ghostly figure that haunts the town. Sightings of red hair vanishing into the woods, or the look of a psychotic green eye staring at them from a distance. I won't lie. I feel like I'm being watched by her all the time. It's unnerving. I turned back to try and find out more about her when out of the corner of my eye I see out my window fogging up. Turning my head I see a red hair dart to the left. I gasp in fear, my left hand clutching my racing heart and my head feeling rattled. She was there the whole time. I mumbled and slowly walk over the window to see a greasy handprint plastered on the once clean glass. I make sure all the doors and windows are locked and start to ponder if I should tell Sullivan and Alice about what I just saw. Alright, that's the end of chapter 1. Why did I turn her into some weird stocky cryptid? You know what? We're just gonna go with it. We're gonna roll with it. There's no use explaining why I wrote what I wrote when I wrote it. Chapter 2. I decided not to tell them. I didn't want to freak out Sullivan, giving him another panic attack is the last thing I want for him. I'm sure Alice would scold me for it too. I did, however, repeat to the police, telling me they would drive cruisers around the neighborhood during the night hours. When Sullivan and Alice returned home, they noticed I was paler than usual. "Hey, Ivan, you okay, man?" Sullivan asked me, a bit of concern lingering in his voice. "Yeah, just got done watching a horror movie," I lied. So how was the date? I asked, trying to change the subject. The two of them smiled warmly at me, telling me they had a wonderful time. Thank you for asking, but we're kind of tired, Alice said, let out a yawn. All right, you two sleep tight now. I gave them a small smile, watching them enter Sullivan's room. Was it really that late? Thought to myself and looked at my phone. 11 p.m. I sighed, knowing I had to be back at work the next morning, and headed to bed. I lay in a dark room, my fan droning on, causing white noise to help me sleep, but I couldn't. Thought of my stalker kept me up, my eyes panning over to the window she once plagued. Took a deep breath to calm my nerves, my eyes slowly falling into the cascade of blackness. I dreamt that night, a faceless figure comforting me, giving me a sense of warmth, the touch of its hand rubbing my forearm and something plush pressing against my lips, accompanied by softly spoken words. I'll always love you. As quickly as it appeared, it left, leaving me alone with the comforting empty void of sleep. My alarm went off, waking me from the bliss of sleep, but it was accompanied by a warm breeze. I opened my eyes to see my window had been forced open, letting in the light from the sun. My heart started pounding, causing my anxiety and fear to escalate. My stomach began to churn from the thoughts of her touching me in my sleep. I wrapped my arms around myself, knowing that I was no longer safe in my own house. I couldn't lie about this anymore. I had to tell Sullivan and Alice for their own safety. Oh God, no, I mumbled in fear. My heart started palpitating, something furious, praying, hoping that she hadn't done anything to harm my dear friends. I shot out of bed and ran to Sullivan's door. I stopped and gripped the doorknob tight, but I hesitated to open it. What would I find on the other side? Chapter 3. Now I will say, Part 2 is a massive improvement on Part 1. Not to pat myself on the back, but you can tell I made improvements. It's still not good. No. Chapter 3. My breath heavy in my lungs. Every horrible thought ran through my mind like a comet. Gripping the doorknob tight, I slowly opened the door, the hinges quietly groaning in protest, and to my relief, Sullivan and Alice were holding one another in bed. I let out a sigh of relief. So much pressure had been alleviated from my chest. I panned my eyes around the room to see scattered clothes on the carpet floor and the window dressing flowing in the wind, elegantly dancing on its waves. The window was open. Was she watching them too? I mumbled to myself. I wanted to wake them up, but seeing the clothes scattered around the bed hinted that they had sex last night. I'd fought against the idea of not telling them and needed to wake them. They were in danger. I didn't care if they got mad at me. They deserved to know. Sully, I mumbled, shaking his shoulder. He groaned in annoyance and refused to acknowledge me. Sully, wake up! My voice getting a bit louder. Sullivan seemed to finally realize I was in his room. His eyes shut open to make sure Alice was covered up, and she was. His head snapped, looking in my direction. What the hell, man? Get out of here before Alice wakes up. He quietly yelled at me. You two need to get up now. This is urgent, I stated. Sullivan could probably make out the panic in my eyes. All right, just leave the room. Sully demanded, and I nodded, closing the door behind me. Called in sick to work shortly after I had left the room, nor too much longer. What? I called in sick to work shortly after I had left the room, nor too much longer? What? That's a spelling error on my part. Sullivan and Alice met up with me in this kitchen. What's wrong, Ivan? Why'd you wake us up? Alice asked, understandably annoyed with me. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wanted to tell them. I needed to tell them, but how would they react? Would you just spit it out already? Sullivan asked in an impatient tone. It's Alexandria. She's stalking us, and last night, I'm sure she broke in. I swear I felt her touching me in my sleep. I admitted. I looked towards my dear friends, both staring at me with skeptical looks. It's not funny, man. You know how we were affected by her. Sullivan was already getting freaked out. Are you sure you weren't hallucinating? Maybe you just imagined it. Alice said as she rubbed Sullivan's back to calm him down. I know what I felt. I woke up this morning. Both of our windows were open. I spat, praying that they'd believe me. Ivan, we haven't seen Alex in months. Why would she show up now? Sullivan looked in my eyes, like he was trying to peer into my soul. What if she's been watching us the whole time? What if she I stopped talking. My whole body froze as I peered down the hallway past Sully and Alice. She was staring at me from my room. Her matted red hair nearly touched the floor, and those obsessed, bloodshot eyes focused solely on me. All I could do was scream in fear. Sullivan and Alice quickly looked and saw a pale hand slip into my room. Alice gasped as Sullivan began to hyperventilate. All three of us stared down the hall, frozen and terrified. That's the end of chapter 3. Good lord. End of chapter 3, on to chapter 4. All three of us stand there, frozen by the terror that engulfed us. Took a deep breath. Call the cops. I'll keep her distracted. I whispered and started walking towards my room. Ivan, wait. Sullivan grabbed my arm. I'm not going to let you go in there, he said, worry plaguing his eyes as he stared into mine. I'm the one she's obsessed with. She won't hurt me. This will be different, I stated, tearing my arm from his grasp. I could see Sullivan wanted to follow me, but his trauma prevented him. He was too scared to even walk down the hall with me. Looking next to him, I see Alice on the phone calling the police. Taking another deep breath, I slowly walk into my room and see her leaving through the window. Alex, stop! I followed her out the window into the thick green forest that lay beyond my home. As I run through the forest, I can feel sticks and rocks poke and prod at my feet. I was so focused on following her that I hadn't put on any shoes. Why was I following her? What was I going to do once I caught up to her? More questions kept popping into my head as I followed her red hair through the brush and leaves. Oh man, excuse me. Sorry, that's normal in this channel. Or horror burps. My lungs were starting to burn and my pace was starting to slow. Suddenly feel something jagged jab into my center of my left foot. I yelled in pain and lifted my leg up only to trip and fall back into I yelled in pain and lifted my leg up only to trip and fall back first into a thorn bush. The little needle jabbed and pierced my skin, sticking into my pajamas and whatever else they could cling to. I felt them stab at the back of my skull and scraping my cheeks. My back felt like it was being clawed at by scorched nails. The pain was nearly unbearable, but I had to pull myself out of this hell of razors. I take my right hand and slowly pull off the twisted, gnarled vines that clung to my skin. It felt like hours before I pulled myself out. I looked at my left foot, leaking crimson, causing a bloody mud puddle. My foot had a sharp rock sticking out of it. My whole body was screaming in pain, but I relented and pulled the rock out. Fuck! I cursed at the agony I've suffered and threw the rock aside. I noticed a hole in my shirt and used it to tear off a piece, tying it around my foot, and forcing myself back to my feet. I let out pathetic whimpers, trying to deal with the suffering my body was going through. My ears didn't catch the sound of footsteps. I looked to my left and see a flash of red, feeling something hit the back of my head and before my body hits the earth. I can hear a familiar voice calling my name from deep in the woods. I had no idea where I'd wind up. So, into chapter 4. Alex clearly tricked him, fell into a bunch of thorn bushes, and knocked him out. Who knows where she's getting the strength, what being she has turned into. Alright, chapter 5. I groaned in confusion, my head throbbing and pulsing with a searing pain, my eyes going in and out of consciousness, seeing only clashing colors of black, brown, and red. I couldn't make out anything that was in front of me. It was all so blurry and incomprehensible. I attempted to move my arms, but they wouldn't, and neither would my legs. A warmth embraced me, along with a pungent odor of dirt and brush. My eyes finally made sense of reality, and I saw Alexandria hugging me warmly. She was asleep, and I didn't want to wake her. Who knew what she would do to me while I was out? Who knew what she did to me while I was out? Take a deep breath to calm my nerves, take in my surroundings. I appear to be on the inside of an old wooden shack. I can see the door to my right. Dusty, old, and broken windows were boarded up with rotted wood. My hands were bound to a rusty metal pipe that stuck out of the ground and went through the ceiling. Then I looked to my left and saw something that haunted me. A shrine to me. She had made a shrine to my likeness. Oh my God, I mumbled in a shaky voice. I tried shaking myself free, but that only brought back the pain in my back and groaned as it coursed through my body. I felt Alexandria's hand rub my chest. I didn't even realize she had taken my shirt off. I looked back to the twisted dedication of me and saw it lying among the memorabilia. I'm gonna get out of here. Keeping my voice at the lowest possible volume. Using my bound hands, I feel around the pipe for any possible sharp edge or crack in it. Alexander began to stir from the emotion in my arms. Stir from the motion my arms caused and stopped for a brief second. I found a sharp edge along the pipe, so I began to saw through the rope. Unfortunately, Alexandria woke up and I stopped moving my arms. She looked up at me with an eerie, possessive smile. "Hello, darling." Her dirty hand cut my cheek, and she slowly dragged her mud-covered fingers across my lips. It took all I had not to recoil and spit in her face. "I missed you so much." She kissed my neck. I winced and gritted my teeth. Someone, please help me. I thought over in my mind. "Alex, listen, not that I don't appreciate the affection, but I'm hungry," I said. I needed her distracted so I can get loose and call for help. My eyes wide, and once the word echoed on my mind. Sullivan and Ella should still be looking for me, along with the cops. "I promise, if you give me something to eat, I'll never leave you," I lied to her. Her green eyes seemed to hold hope, but this only made her move closer. "You can wait." She started groping and touching me. I squirmed at her advances, my body aching in pain with every movement I made. I refused to be subject to this mad woman's carnal desires. "Alex, stop. Please," I begged, but she didn't. I put my right foot against her belly and kicked her off me. "I said to fucking stop!" I shouted. We're back at the wooden wall, and the small shack vibrated from the impact. She slumped over and looked at me with a heartbroken gaze. She opened her mouth to say something, but she was interrupted by shouting in the distance. "Ivan, where are you?" That was Sullivan's voice. "I'm over here! For God's sakes, help me!" I yelled back. Looked over at Alexandria to see her knocking over the candles of the shrine. Ivan is mine, and mine alone. The wind shack began to burn, the red blaze already spreading. I need to get some water. Please excuse me for real quick. Okay, that's better. Alright, where was I? I lost my place. The wooden shack began to burn, the red blazing already spreading. She turned her green eyes to me and walked over, kneeling beside me. She put her arms around me and with a quiet voice spoke. "I love you, Ivan. I love you so much it hurts," she whispered. "Alex, get me out of here!" I yelled. I was so panicked by the frenzy of flames and the rising heat. I forgot about the sharp edge on the pipe. Smoke started to form and penetrate our lungs. Both of us began to cough, but she refused to move or get off me. I was going to die, burning alive. I squirmed and fought, but I couldn't get free. The shack creaked and groaned. The red blaze of fire spread and began to burn my skin. Everything went black as the roof collapsed on top of us. The last thing my ears heard was Sullivan yelling my name among the roar of flames. In the empty black space that occupied my mind, I heard a subtle beeping and voices that were unfamiliar to me. I felt things stick into me and what felt like hands dig into my chest, but no pain came from it. All that accompanied my consciousness was darkness and incandescent voices. Everything was silent. When I finally awoke from my unconsciousness, laying in a hospital bed, hooked up to tubes and a breathing mask, my body was aching and burning from pain that had no doubt been mumbled from painkillers. But it still hurt. My body was covered in burns and my chest was pulsing with pain. I examined my chest to see it wrapped up in gauze, a heart monitor beeping in my left ear. A few minutes later, my doctor came in. He seemed glad I was finally awake. "Mr. Reese, I'm glad you're awake. Can you understand me?" he asked. I nodded. I wanted to speak, but my vocal cords didn't comply. "Good. Your friends told me what happened, and I'm very sorry you had to go through all that," he said with a sad tone, but continued. "Honestly didn't think you'd live with the burns and the damage to your heart," he explained. "My heart?" I wheezed out. "Yes, unfortunately the girl who kidnapped you didn't make it. As this so happened, her heart was perfect for your replacement," he stated. My eyes widened, and I began to cry, knowing that she would be a part of my life for eternity. And that was Obsession. That was my first ever story. The end, I don't want to just kind of I don't want to pat myself on the back. I don't want to yeah, this was good. I did pretty good here. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. So I want you all to just tell me what you thought of my story in the comments. Please be honest, be brutal. Tell me it sucked. Tell me you liked it. I don't care. I just want to hear your opinions on it. So, all right. Well, thanks again for listening to my story. And I cannot wait to read everyone's submissions that they've suggested to me, and the subscribers and the very kind support y'all have given me just from that single post-it. I really do appreciate it. Y'all are amazing, and I want to think, what is this, a speech? It's just because of Hunter and Isaiah we all get to do this, right? I'm so thankful to those guys. They're so cool. Creepcast. We all do. And I'm glad horror stories, like goofy, bad, mid, any kind of horror story, just kind of can, get a lot of people together and just talk about the scary stuff anyone can write. So, all right, I think I've rambled on long enough. It's late. I need to go to work. Or not work, but I need to go to bed so I can get ready for work in the morning. So, again, thank you all so much. And you all have a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.